Yes, folks, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Parlay Restaurants and Sports, located in Jing'an, Shanghai, your new favorite spot for barbecue, burgers, and so much more. Come out to watch all your favorite sporting events. Enjoy brunches weekends starting at 11 on our terrace. Test your skill at darts, pool, and golden tea, an icon bar classic. 9 beers on draft, the freshest barbecue cooked daily, and so much more. This Saturday starting at 5 p.m., followed by our first brunch Sunday at 11. Parlay. We have you covered from kickoff to last call.
Black China, baby.
Baby. Yeah, we know we don't play around. We know the podcast in Shanghai. There's only one guy on my side, and his name is Craig. Check him out. Skinny OG, boy. Woo. If you got a story to tell, call Craig. The government been checking your mail. Just call Craig. Your ex-girlfriend just fell down a well. Call Craig. They say they about to put you in jail. Just call Craig. Call Craig. Call Craig. Hey, you go and tell Craig. Call Craig. Call Craig. Hey, you go and tell Craig. Call Craig. Call Craig. Hey, you go and tell Craig. The only podcast that's ringing the bell. Call Craig. Call Craig. Boy, you know who to find. Just go tell him your story. It'll be fine. You know, have a good time. Yeah, this your boy Skinny OG. Skinny OG. Love, big up to my boys. Tell Craig your story. Check him out now.
Hello everyone, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Today we'll be talking to James Murray. Now, I was lucky enough to talk to James last Saturday night at the MKW Battle of the Decade. James was the ring announcer for the live event, and he's been doing it for quite a while now for MKW. He put on a great performance and really livened up the crowd. Now, James was born in the USA, now residing in Zhuhai, China. Now, in 2024, James released his comic book, Billy the Kid Makes the Masked Striker. And he sent me through a list of appearances for 2025. Now, firstly, the 5th and 6th of July at the Comiket International Comics Convention at the Mega Mall in Manila, Philippines. Then the rest of the dates will be in the US. July 19th and 20th at the Hershey Comic Con. The 9th of August at the Nintani Comic Con in State College, Penn State, Pennsylvania. 16th of August at the Lehigh Valley Comic Con. November the 17th and through to 19th at the Baltimore Comic Con. November the 21st to the 23rd at the Monster Mania Oaks, Pennsylvania. And December the 6th at the Lehigh Valley Comic Con. Now, James will be making some appearances at local bookshops in the US. To get all the information, please go to his website, and that will be in the description below. But before we go, please go to our website. We're at Podbean. Tell Craig Your Story at podbean.com. We have a link tree there which tells you where Tell Craig Your Story podcast is streaming. We're on all the major streaming services. At Tell Craig Your Story. For our Chinese listeners, we have Bilibili, TikTok, Red Note, and WeChat. All right, here we go. This is my chat with James Murray on Tell Craig Your Story podcast.
Tell Craig your story.
Yeah. So
you're in Shanghai?
James, yes, I'm in Shanghai, and it is also the hottest it's been this year. I think it was 30 today. So just a little quick review of 2024. What were some of the highlights professionally and personally?
Okay, well, I guess the big one was the wrestling show that I got to announce for in Shanghai. It was Infin Wrestling, and it was sponsored by New Japan Pro Wrestling. So that was pretty happy about that. Yeah, I met some big names that Yuji Nagata, one of like the great all-time Japanese wrestlers. I got to meet him. And then there's some big names on the indie scene. I get Bolton Oleg and like my friend Big Sam was there, and that was a big deal. And I figured, you know, I'm from like a small town in Pennsylvania. So I figured probably promote myself a little bit. It's a little newsworthy. So I contacted my hometown newspaper and, I explained what I did and they did like a story about me. So they had like a big story in my hometown newspaper, like front page about how I'm like this wrestling announcer and how I do writing and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool. I got from that.
Yeah. It was 2024, the release of your comic book as well?
Yes, my new comic. Yeah, it's when I got it in my hands. Yes, I got Billy the Kid Meets the Masked Striker. I got connected with a Filipino artist and, so we did like a short webcomic together, like Billy like a Masked Striker webcomic. It's a character I created.
Yeah.
So we did like a short webcomic and then we worked well together and the guy's about my age, similar interests and stuff. And he's done some work for DC Comics and some of the bigger indie companies in North America and stuff. And, so we collaborate. Wow. So yeah, it's a standard, you know, 20 page comic. So it's, you know, Western kind of action adventure story. Another big highlight was I went to, Super ManilaCon. Like, so I live close to Hong Kong. Like a flight to the Philippines is just like a couple hour flight. But in September, I went to, they had the Super ManilaCon. So they run comic book shows a few times a year. Like I go to the Philippines a few times a year for these book shows and stuff. And, this particular show was like a huge show. And I just had my book. It was brand new. I just got it in my hands like just a few weeks before the show. And I sold a whole bunch of copies. I sold a ton of copies. And, C.B. Sobolski, the head editor of Marvel Comics, was there. And he was there scouting for artists, you know, for Filipino artists. But I got to meet him for like a minute and talk to him and say hi to him and stuff. So that was really cool.
Oh, wow. That's great. And you didn't mention the MKW show.
I don't know if my memory's going now. I don't remember if that was 2024 or not. If it was like the beginning of the year. Yeah, I guess that would have been Bash at the Bay in Shenzhen. No, it wasn't Guangzhou. It was Shenzhen. Yeah, that would have been, right at the beginning of the year. Yeah. Yeah, that was like right at the start of winter break. And because I remember I went home like right after that. Right. But yeah, that was, I listened to your episode with Big Sam where, that's where he wrestled Yoshi.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah, he's a funny guy, Big Sam. So I saw an interview that you did with him as well. Or was it just like a promo for him? Yeah, we do that a lot. Yeah, we do a lot of, like working interviews together. Yeah, that's something that kind of became my thing. I was up in Harbin. I was living in Harbin years ago and, somebody like a coworker randomly mentioned that there's a guy running pro wrestling shows in China. I'm like, what? You know, and he, connected me with Adrian Gomez and then I started going to his shows as a fan. This would have been like spring of 2018. And, so I met Adrian and, I introduced myself. And since I lived in Asia, everyone complimented my voice. And I was in a point where like I'd done a lot of cool stuff. I'd done a lot of things that I wanted to do in my life. And I was in that kind of like what's next phase, you know. I just went to the Winter Olympics in Korea. And that was something I wanted to do for a long time. So I did, cause I used to live in Korea. And so I saw the Olympics and, you know, I got a little bit of recognition in my teaching career and stuff. And I got, you know, and I took care of some personal things and it was like, well, now what am I going to do now? And then I started, you know, bugging Adrian and, he didn't know who I was. He didn't know if I was just some schmo or something. But he did a Halloween show in October of 2018 and he let me ring announce the show. Right.
So that was really cool. And then at the time, like, I don't want to get into it too much, but at the time, that was like the first ring announcing thing I ever did. Like first wrestling thing I ever did where I was working at a show. So, and I thought, you know, maybe this would just be a one-off. I wasn't sure if I was going to stick around Harbin or whatever, but I did. He really needed a Chinese announcer. Right. So he was able to, he found a good announcer, but lucky for me, he kept me on as like the interview guy. So sometimes during shows, I'd be like, Mean Gene Okerlund and, interviewing like the foreign wrestlers, like, and then we started doing like the pre-taped interviews, sometimes Sam and I before a show will just get together and do an interview like that. So that kind of became my thing. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, right. And is Mean Gene and Howard Finkel, are they the guys you look up to?
Yeah. I got a picture of Mean Gene and Hogan on my wall here. I'm an 80s child, so I was a Hulkamaniac growing up.
Yeah, me too. So when did you first start watching? When can you remember the first time watching it? Did you actually go to live events, or was it just on the TV? Or?
A few house shows when I was a kid. I've never been to like a pay-per-view or like a Raw or anything that was on TV. I remember when I was a little kid, like I'd watched it a little bit, but I wasn't like super into it. But I remember like Hogan, and I vaguely remember like the first WrestleMania, and I remember WrestleMania 3 being big news at the time, but I don't remember seeing it until later. But around WrestleMania 4 was like the time that I started watching it on a regular basis, and I watched it I watched it up till when I was in high school, and then I legit stopped watching it for a few years. And my mother hated wrestling, and she said when I was a kid, she's like, the happiest day of my life was when you stopped watching that horrible wrestling. So.
And then
the Attitude Era.
Yeah. Picked up with Stone Cold. Yeah.
I had a friend that went to a Monday Night Raw, and that was back when it was taped. So I remember I watched like that episode, and I legit hadn't watched wrestling in years. That had to have been the first Monday Night Raw I ever saw. It was the build up to Austin and Taker at SummerSlam in '98 or whenever that was.
Wow.
And it was like, cause I knew who Undertaker was, but I didn't really know who Stone Cold was. Like I'd heard of him. But I remember like the Undertaker comes out and he's like, I want a title shot right now. And then I think it's Michael Cole, somebody finds Austin backstage, is like, I'll accept any challenge, get the hell out of my way. And then the glass breaks and he comes down to the ring. I'd never seen that before. And it was like, wow, like wrestling changed so much. It was like, whoa, this is like really pretty wild. So then I slowly got back into it. And then since then, it's like, I have times I watch it a bit and then I don't watch it, and I'm on and off with it, but I generally hear like the news and stuff through social media. But I'm like the last generation that probably grew up, like thinking it was a shoot,
Yes.
It was a funny story. My mother was a sports fan, and she liked football and basketball and everything, but she didn't like wrestling. So I'd be watching wrestling as a little kid, and my mom would be like, "What are you watching that stuff for? That that's so fake. That's so." So there's this tag team I like called Strike Force. Like one of my favorite wrestlers as a kid was Tito Santana. And
and the model, right?
Yeah, him and Rick Martel, they were the tag team champions, and they lost the titles to Demolition. I don't remember if it was that match or a subsequent match, but Martel took a chair shot. And then on TV, they said that Rick Martel was out with a concussion. And then like he legit wasn't on TV for like a year. So my mom was like giving me crap about watching wrestling and, that stuff's not real. They're not really fighting each other. And I was like, no, like Rick Martel has a concussion and, he's not on TV. He got hit head with a chair and, so wrestling must be real. I mean, if it wasn't having a concussion, then he'd be on TV. So that was like my silver bullet, And then years later, I got a good friend named Ralph back home in Pennsylvania where I'm from, and he's a big wrestling fan. He's all into the indie scene. He knows all the indie guys and stuff. And there was a minor league baseball team in Reading, Pennsylvania. They had like a wrestling night and Tito Santana like appeared at the game. And like before the game started, you could like, meet him and get his autograph and stuff. So I got an autograph picture and all that. And I told him this story. And I said, what really happened to Rick? Like, did he actually really get hurt or was it something else? And he told me that, like, for real, like Rick Martel's wife had some, like an illness or something. She had some health issue and Rick, took time off, to, be with his wife. So that was the age old mystery solved.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Go back to where you grew up, Pennsylvania. So what was it like growing up there?
Small town called Shamokin, Pennsylvania. It's a coal mining town. Yeah, I was a bookworm as a kid. I was like really quiet and really shy as a kid, and I was really skinny too. So I wasn't really an athlete, but I was a comic book fan all my life. I was like a little kid. My mom took me to like the corner store to buy lottery tickets, and I hobbled over to the magazine rack and got my first Spider-Man comic book, and that, and that was
Spider-Man,
like
first one, was that right?
I mean, I must have been like 4 or 5. Like, it was before I started school. I had a stack of comics already. Like, I could read half decently before I started kindergarten.
Smart.
So that was my thing. Yeah.
So you said Spider-Man was your first one, but what other comics were you reading at that time?
As a little kid, I was into Spider-Man and Superman. I'd read, and I read Spider-Man pretty much all through my childhood. And then I was like a teenager in the 90s, and that's when like Image Comics hit, and Dark Horse Comics did a lot of cool stuff like Aliens versus Predator, and I was like Predator, so I did Predator comics. And I remember when I was like 13, they relaunched Ghost Rider, and I distinctly remember reading like the first issue of Ghost Rider, and I thought it was like, like the greatest thing I'd ever seen. That was pretty cool. And then I was into the Punisher. I remember like issue 5, I think, of Ghost Rider had the Punisher in it, so it was like the Ghost Rider and Punisher, teaming up, killing ninjas, it's like what else do you want, other than that. So.
And what do you think about comic books, back then compared to now?
Oh, well, they're more expensive. They're like $5 an issue now.
Yes.
That's,
Yeah. How much were they back then in the 80s?
Living overseas, there's a comic book store in Hong Kong, actually. There's Metro Comics, so I do get a few things from them now and again, but and when I'm home, there's a place open in the next town over for me. So I don't read them on a regular basis anymore, but I have there's this website called Global Comics, and it's like it's not like a pirated thing. It's a legit, like, you can stream comics or buy PDFs, and like I have my comic on there. I've been reading stuff on there. I'm reading some of the Energon universe. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but I'm not current with it, but I'm reading some of the stuff. It's this one studio, they got the rights to the Hasbro characters, so they're doing this whole comic book world with like G.I. Joe and the Transformers and a few other like characters mixed in there. But they have different series. They had like a mini series about Destro. They had a mini series about Duke, and they have like a Transformers and the G.I. Joe series, and that's pretty neat. So I'm trying to catch up with that. That's like maybe a year or 2 years old.
And then growing up, when did you start writing it yourself? When did you start sort of writing stories and realizing that, hey, it's not bad?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really, I can't really draw. Like, I don't really have like that natural drawing talent. I do it a little bit when I was a kid, but I was like a really little kid, and I wrote something. I had on a piece of paper, I drew like a couple little pictures, and I had like a sentence or two, but it was G.I. Joe versus the Moon Monster. And it was seriously, it was like 32 pages or something like that. I was like a little kid. Yeah, I wish I still had it, but I was always a writer. And when I was a teenager and in college, I got really into poetry. I ran really hard with poetry for a long time. I don't really do it anymore, but I used to do like a lot of poetry readings. I've read poems in like, I think 3 countries, and a lot of places that used to be a thing for me. Like I go seek those groups of people out and go do readings and stuff. But now I'm focusing more on like prose fiction and comics, and I keep a blog. I don't update it often, but I used to do movie reviews. But so I'm always trying to work on something.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. And I also saw if you do comedian work as well.
No, that was just, well, who knows? I mean, I thought wrestling was just a one-off. So no, I had a friend, when I lived in Korea, I had my good friend, Brian Allward. He's a Canadian guy. He's a comedian. And, when I, in my poetry days, I went to this open mic in Seoul, South Korea. And I would do poetry, and there was musicians there, and this Brian, he started doing comedy. And it was a really cool group of people. I really kind of missed that. That was kind of like, I look back at that now, and I was like, it was a magical time. I met some really talented people, really talented musicians and stuff. And then, so I met Brian, and Brian travels a lot. And he, when I first came back, when I came to China, he was staying in Bangkok, like off and on. And a couple of times on the winter holiday, I went down to see him, and see him do his comedy and stuff. And then this past winter break, I went to see him again. It was just like a couple weeks ago. I hadn't seen Brian since like 2020, actually, before the world ended. And, so I went to see him, and he's going to have a special, he's going to film like a special pretty soon. He's going to put it on YouTube. I guess he's just going to put it on YouTube for free, but so I went to this comedy show, and, they had like 2 shows a night, and they have shows every night of the week. It's in like the back alley of Kosan Road, if anyone knows Bangkok.
Oh, yeah.
So they had 2 shows, and the first show was like, they had a set of comedians, and the one guy that was hosting it, he was just like, yeah, the second show was more kind of informal, and he just, I don't know, he just casually mentioned, like, yeah, if you want to get up and tell a joke, sure, go ahead. So I gave it a try. I mean, I didn't bring the house down or anything, but I had a funny story about, a friend of mine and I went to this yard sale one time. This one dude there, and he was like this big heavyset dude. And he was a cool guy and everything, but he had a whole bunch of comic books, and my friend and I were comic book nerds. We were checking out his books, and he's like, hey, you like comic books, so I got some more, down in my basement. You want to come down my basement, look at my comic books, and sure. So we did, and he had some cool baseball memorabilia and stuff like that. And he was a cool guy, but afterwards, my friend and I were kind of laughing about it. I was like, yeah, we're like totally willing to go in this guy's basement to look at his comic books. Like, he totally could, stuff this in the freezer, and no one ever knew. So I made a joke about it, and be like, oh, you want comic books? Well, come down to my basement. Come look at, they're just over there, just in that dark room over there. Just, so that got a good laugh.
That's good. And you can't do it in Zhuhai?
They have a comedy scene in Hong Kong.
Okay, right.
There's a club there called The Aftermath I went to a couple of times. They do a lot of stuff during the week, and it's a little tricky for me to get there on the weeknight, but I did go there a couple of times. There's a expat community there that's, they do a lot of shows and stuff, but I'm not really too connected with them. I got a buddy in Guangzhou that owns a pub, the Shamrock Inn in Guangzhou, and they do a lot of events. Yeah, they have a comedy night. It's like on Thursday. But yeah, but it was fun. That was a fun experience.
Did you go to the University of Pennsylvania, or where did you go for university?
I went to Bloomsburg University in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. It's close to where I live.
And what was your major?
Secondary education, comprehensive social studies.
Oh, there you go. And what were your goals there when you were finishing up? Did you have any plans on what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be a teacher, and that's a long story, but I just, I want to, get away and see the world, and, I want to move away. And for whatever reason, Pennsylvania is always tough to get a teaching job. So that's kind of half of the reason I ended up in all these kind of places. But I have this distinct memory of, I was in an education class in college, and, the professor, they were telling us, like, if you really, you pretty much have to relocate if you want to get a job. And he asked the class, so who wants to relocate? Who wants to move out of the area? And myself and like half the class raised their hands, and the other half didn't. The professor said in front of everybody, he's like pointing like to myself and the other students, like, these are the ones that are going to get jobs. The rest of you, you're not going to get a job. So. Yeah.
And were you writing comic books at that time as well, or is that more focused on your studies?
No, well, I mean, that was my poetry days. I was really into poetry.
Oh, right.
That was like, and I guess I wanted to write novels and stuff, but I wasn't, like, what I was actually doing was the poetry. There was a coffee shop, like typical thing. There was a coffee shop downtown in Bloomsburg. It's called the Phillips Emporium. I think it's something else now. They have this group. The group still exists. It's called the River Poets Group. Because it's from people from small towns in that area. We're all near the Susquehanna River. So they have these monthly poetry readings, and they've had them for like 30 years now. That's what started me in the poetry, because it was like, there was a place I can go and I had an audience. But the comic book thing, like, I think about that now, and like, maybe I'm misremembering this, but if you had asked me when I was like in my 20s, like, I don't know if I really seriously had the idea of like, oh, I could write comic books, or I could like write for Marvel Comics, because comic books almost died in like the late 90s. And like when I started college, I remember like there were 3 comic book stores in the town that I was going to college at, and it was a small town. And by the time I graduated college, they're all closed. In the early 90s, I know there were like 10,000 comic book stores in North America. And by the end of the 90s, it was like under 3,000. I think it's still under 3,000. Right. And like Marvel Comics was like $700 million in debt. And like they almost got bought by DC Comics. So like it almost went under. So like I said, maybe I'm misremembering this, but like, I don't know if I seriously had the idea of like, oh yeah, I could write comic books, because it was like, well, who would buy it? It's like, it looks like it's all going to go under.
Yeah. And then where does China fit into all this? I mean, you said before that you went to South Korea and a couple other places in Asia, but where does China fit into this?
In my late 20s, I was having a really bad time. I had some bad luck with some jobs and stuff, and I got in some debt, and I was just having a rough time. And I had a friend that had taught in Korea before, and he ended up he was going to go back to Korea, and he asked if I wanted to come with him. And then, so I thought, yeah, I have like nothing to lose. So I went to Korea, and I got a job teaching English. And I ended up staying there for years, and it was like, I had the time of my life there. It turned my life around. It really did.
Yeah, right.
So
whereabouts in South Korea?
I was in a suburb of Seoul called Suwon.
Right.
If you subway map of Seoul, it's actually on line 1, but it's a suburb of Seoul. It's like right outside.
Right. And what did you think of South Korea? A bit of a culture shock?
No, I had reverse culture shock when I came home, actually.
Right.
Coming back was really tough on me, actually. People ask about Asian kids, and they're not perfect angels, but generally speaking, they were really nice kids. And I mean, I know not everyone has a great experience, but my own personal experience was like really positive. I was really happy there, and it kind of put my life back together, and I kind of got myself straightened out with some things. And then when I lived there, it's the same as here. I had 2 holidays a year, so I got to travel to Japan and Australia and all these, see Asia. And but right before I left, it was in the news that Korea was going to get the Olympics in 2018, and it was like years away at the time. And I went back to America, and I wasn't totally sure, but I thought, yeah, it'd be cool if I could check that out. And then I decided to. But what happened was about 13 years ago, the jobs really closed up in Korea. It's really hard for someone like me to get a job there now. So I had a friend that was in China, and one thing led to another. I ended up teaching in China. So, I moved to Harbin, China in the fall of 2017. And then, winter 2018, I had my winter holiday. So then from there, I got to go to the Olympics and see the Olympics, like I said.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah. I saw the ski jumping. I really wanted to see the ski jumping, and I was really happy about that. And I saw the speed skating and, skeleton. I don't know if you remember, if you would have seen it, there was a Korean guy that he had an Iron Man helmet, and he was in the skeleton.
Yes.
He broke a world record or something like that. But I saw him. I saw him do it.
Oh, yeah, right. Wow. And then the move to China, what was that for? Was that again for teaching as well?
Yeah, I was teaching, yeah. It was, they told me I was going to teach, high school social studies, which is my field, and I got there and I was teaching 5th grade English. So.
Oh, wow.
So that was typical, but then stuff happened, and I moved down to here to China, and here I actually am teaching social studies. I'm teaching U.S. history and economics and a culture class about Western culture. So I'm pretty happy with that. So.
I know how funny it is when you start teaching in China. You have to be very prepared and very able to adapt very quickly.
One thing I remember from my master's is that it was written somewhere, teaching's like jazz. It's like you kind of have a plan, but you have to improvise too. So.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. So true. So you get to China, you're teaching away. Where does it all happen where you meet Adrian? Did you say you were living in Harbin for a little while there? Is that where you met him?
Harbin. Yeah, and Adrian lives in Harbin. And like I said, it was, from what I remember, a coworker just kind of casually mentioned like, hey, there's a wrestling organization, in China. I was like, what? So then I added him on WeChat, and then I saw he had like 3 shows in the spring.
Right.
And I introduced myself to him, and I was saying like, yeah, you know, you need a ring announcer or something, you know, let me know. And then he said, cause I remember I went home for the summer and, it was a question of if I was going to come back, and he said, well, I'm going to do a Halloween show in October, and if you're here, you can be the ring announcer. So that's
right.
yeah. So the French wrestler is French. He's an Italian wrestler, Francesco Akira.
You with MKW, you met Adrian. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you had no experience as well, and he just gave you that shot to.
I've experienced in that, but I've been public speaking for 20-some years. And I'm in the classroom, and then doing the poetry readings, I'm up in front of an audience doing something. So it's not, you know, like I'm used to speaking to groups of people. So.
And how long did it take you to prepare to actually know all the names and their weights and where they're from? And
I just put them in index cards in practice. And when I lived in Harbin, Adrian and I used to sit down and go over the show together and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that does Big Sam live down your way as well? Is he living?
I moved to Zhuhai. Yeah. Some shenanigans were happening up north, and I was like, you know, I was like, when I go home, I was thinking about going home, but then at the time COVID was a little tough in America, so.
Oh yeah, right.
I had a bunch of my friends help me out with hooking me up with recruiters and stuff, and I had somebody hooked me up with a recruiter that interviewed me for this job that I have now, and it was teaching social studies. And I figured, you know, I kind of knew Sam at the time, and I thought, well, I know at least one person there, so I'll just see how it goes. And then, you know, the job turned out to be pretty good, and then, you know, Sam and I got to know each other more, and we talked about the business a lot. So it's worked out, and then there's other wrestling groups down here, you know, that I got to be connected with. There's King of Pro Wrestling out of Guangzhou. There's Hong Kong Wrestling Federation in Hong Kong. I got to do a show with them.
Infin Pro Wrestling?
Infin Wrestling, yeah, they're up in Shanghai, yeah. They came back in August. They did there was a Hong Kong show, and I wasn't like as connected with them, but I was gonna go to the show just as a fan, and then at the last minute they're like, yeah, we want you to announce. It was a show that had a steel cage match. So I was like really stoked about that. I was really excited. I got to announce steel cage.
Yeah, right. Bring it back, old school. And is there any differences between teaching down there and like teaching here in China or South Korea?
I'm in a program where my students are to go to college in an English-speaking country. So I teach U.S. history and I teach economics, and then there's a culture class where, like, in the fall it's general information on the United States and United Kingdom, and then in the spring it's Canada and Australia. And like I have a bunch of students that graduated already that they're going to college in Australia right now. So it's just the idea is getting ready for that. So yeah.
Very cool. Also, I saw on your page that you're right into pinballs as well.
I like pinball, yeah. When I see a pinball machine, I play it. Yeah, I was in back over the summer. There was a place. It was a little bit far from me, but they had like this new pinball arcade place, and I didn't get to participate in it, but I guess they actually have like proper like pinball tournaments and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So let's talk about the new comic book. This is not your first comic book, right?
No, I did some stuff like years ago, but it's been quite a while. I have this comic book I did a long time ago. It's Curse of the Mummy Stone, and it's just a one-shot story. It kind of mimics seeing a movie during the golden age of Hollywood. So like the front page there, that's the Victoria Theater that used to exist in my hometown. It doesn't exist anymore. And then it's like the movie starts where there's like, they used to have like newsreel footage before a movie started. So I'm like imitating that, and then it's like the proper movie starts, and so and then like at the end there, it's like the curtain close at the end there. So that was the idea.
Very cool.
But this is a new thing I'm trying to like establish as like an actual property. So I have a couple web comics, and I have this comic book. And I'm gonna I have a prose story that I wrote. I'm gonna put that on my blog, like a Mass Striker prose story that I'll put on my blog in the fall. Yeah. I'm working on a mini series, like a Mass Striker comic book mini series. I want to use this as like a proof of concept. I can, pitch to other publishers saying that like I've done this and I have this mini series that I want to try to pitch. So,
Right.
I want to try stories of this world.
So when did you start getting ideas for this comic? Was it during the COVID or?
I think so. Yeah, around that time, maybe a little before that. Yeah.
How was COVID for you? I mean, everyone's got a story about,
Right.
where they got locked down, and what did you do in that period, and how was it for you?
January of 2020, I went to the first day of my winter holiday. There was a wrestling show in Thailand, and Adrian got me in Bangkok. So I went to that, and then I went to visit somebody in Laos. I had not been to Laos before. I'd been to Southeast Asia before, but this was my first time in Laos. So I did that, and then I went back to Thailand, and around that time it was like the news was starting that this shit's going down, and one of my best friends was in the Philippines. I went to visit him, and then by that point it was like this looks pretty serious, so I ended up going home sometime in February 2020, and I didn't come back to Harbin until like November. But yeah, it was just, I spent time with my mom, spent time with my family, and I think in a way it turned out to, like, for me personally, I think it was like, it was probably the best thing for me that I was home.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough time for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, we all got it down here in Zhuhai. We all got COVID. It was like 2 years ago around Christmas time. Like that's when like we pretty much.
Yeah, right. And where can we purchase this comic book for my listeners?
You can get a digital copy of it on globalcomics.com.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to that. And a lot of my writing stuff is hardcorestudios.com. I go to these shows in the Philippines, and like when I'm home, I want to, when I'm back in the States, I want to do conventions and stuff. And so I'm from Pennsylvania. So like between Pennsylvania and like New York and New Jersey and like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., there's a lot of shows. So that's what I'm looking at doing. Yeah.
There's like Comic-Co or whatever. They're huge over in the US, right? You ever been to one of them before?
Yeah. I was at years ago. I was at a lot of smaller shows, and then I was at New York City has like a huge show in the fall. I was at that a long time ago, and I'm looking to go this year. There's a good regional show in Charlotte, North Carolina. I did that a couple times, so a couple times. And then there's a lot of small one-day shows. Like as soon as I get back in the summer, there's a show in like Hershey, Pennsylvania that's like an hour from me, and that's like a small show, but I'm going to try and get into that, and a lot of small shows here and there too.
Right. Do you miss home?
Yeah, I do actually.
So,
I'm looking at summer. Yeah.
Do you have plans to go back in the future, or are you happy to stay in Zhuhai for the time being?
Everyone gives me crap about it because it's like Korea was the same way. It's like every year is my last year, but
yeah, 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm looking as of now, as of March 2nd right now, I'm looking to go home, this summer, and I'm just going to take some time off and do my writing. I have a home. I have a place back home, and I have like a little office. I have a space I made for myself to I have a desk, and I have all my books and my comics and other stuff, and I have like a spot. Is it
hard for you to promote an English comic book?
In Hong Kong, yeah, but in the Philippines, for whatever reason, more than other Asian countries, the Philippines has like a North American comic book scene. Like you go to a shop and you'll see like a comic book store like you would see in North America, and they have these comic book shows where they like there's Filipinos that have worked for Marvel and DC and big bigger independent companies, so they have this scene. So yeah, like I said, I go there I've been going there like 4 or 5 times a year actually for these shows.
Right, yeah. I think I saw a picture of you in Cebu as well. Is that a nice place?
Yeah.
I've never been there before.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. There was a Cebu literary festival. I did that for 2 years, and then this past winter break, I was at the Cebu Lit Festival in November, and somebody approached me that they opened a new bookstore in Cebu, and so like about a month ago, they had me in for like a signing, like at the bookstore in Cebu.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I did. So I did a signing there. That was like on a Saturday, and then like the following weekend there was a comic book show in Manila. So that's what I was doing.
Nice.
Like in China and Japan and Korea, they have like manga stores, obviously, but there was not as much of a thing for well, they might have like Marvel and DC graphic novels, but the lettering will be in Korean or Chinese or whatnot.
Right.
You might have like one foreign bookstore somewhere that will have stuff maybe, but I haven't been, but I heard a foreigner or somebody opened a proper comic book store in Seoul in Korea. So I'm gonna try and hit that up. We have the holiday in May. I think I'm gonna try and go there because May, I don't know if you know comic books or not, but in May is free comic book day on the first Saturday.
Right.
A lot of comic book stores, they do special events and stuff like that. Like I've done signings in the past for that. So I haven't talked to them yet, but they don't know me, but I'm going to try and get connected with that.
Sounds great. If you go back to the US, who's going to do the ring announcing for MKW?
Yeah, well, they'll find somebody.
And are you going to be there for the Beijing, the next one that they got coming up? I've just seen some flyers out for the Beijing show.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know actually. I think that's on a Saturday. Sometimes I think that sometimes they run a show on like a Tuesday or something, and it's like I love this stuff. I'm not going to take off work for it.
Yeah, but, that's right.
And I think that's the late Saturday, and
it is
we'll
Saturday,
see.
Yes.
I want to say that I will, and then.
But I do remember they wanted Shenzhen, but I do remember seeing you at the Shenzhen show.
I wasn't sure if we'd actually met in person or not.
We didn't. All right, James. So, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Off the top of my head, I think that nobody owes you anything. You can't expect people to just give you stuff. Like it's just that the cliche thing. Like if you want something, you have to get it. Yeah.
Okay. What's the plans for the future? Now that you've brought the comic book out.
Yeah, I want to go home and I want to take some time off, and I have some money saved up, and I'm gonna like not work for a little bit, and I'm just I want to get up in the morning and write for a couple hours, and then have some lunch and write for a couple hours more, and then try to get the shows, comic book shows and stuff on the weekends, and just pitch my miniseries and maybe self-publish another like a prose book or something, and just see where it goes, see if I get any traction from that, and then I. Down the road, I might have to start looking at part-time work or just figuring out, what to do next. But in the short term, that's what I'm looking at. And I'd like to do wrestling shows when I'm back home. I'm not really like connected with the groups back home, but if I could get in, I would. So it'd be fun. I did do a show about an hour from where I live. They have the Mahoning Drive-In. It's a really cool place. They do a lot of really cool things there and stuff. And they had a wrestling show in 2020. It was probably the first wrestling show they had during the COVID era. In
the drive-in.
And I managed to get myself into that to ring announce for that.
Very cool.
They've had they call it the Real Rumble, like REEL. And they have, so they had a wrestling ring set up in front of the movie screen. And then during the daytime, they have like a wrestling card. And then at night, they show a wrestling related movie.
Nice.
So then they've had it every summer the last like 5 years or so, but I got to be the ring announcer at the very first one. So something like that opens up. Yeah, I do it. That'd be cool if I could, keep doing that. We'll see.
Very
so
cool.
I have, one of the things I'm working on, it is kind of coming slow, but, I'm trying to do like a wrestling novel.
Oh, yeah,
in,
right.
I think it's the early 50s in the territory days about a guy that travels across the country and does wrestling shows and kind of finds himself in, just kind of that life. And so I'm trying to work on that. I want to self-publish that. And then I want to do like a manga, like find a manga artist and do like a comic book, but set in the same world, but in Japan, like wrestlers in Japan. So that I have my idea right now is I want to have a prose story set in like in North America, and then the manga comic book story set in Japan, but they're all in the same world, so I can interchange characters. So that's the plan.
Very cool. That sounds awesome. That's great, James. Social medias, where can we find you for people?
Hard Coal Studios. This is COAL, Hard Coal Studio. I'm from the coal region, so I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook page for that, and my blog is hardcoalstudios.com.
Yes.
But you can find me on Instagram. I enjoy Instagram a lot. I have fun on there. So check me out. And, so that's where I'm at.
All right. And to finish off, I just ask, I give you some topics, and you
Sure.
give me your top 2 or 3 favorites of all time. What is your top 2 or 3 favorite bands or artists of all time?
I'm a big like Black Sabbath / Ozzy, so that'd be number
Oh,
one.
nice.
Big Guns
You
N'
know they're
Roses.
doing a reunion tour?
Ozzy's really sick. I don't know how that'll be.
Yeah.
But he's
I
got
reckon
Parkinson's.
he's scheduled to do an Ozzy Osbourne set and a Black Sabbath set. So I don't know how he's going to do it.
Just only do like a few songs or something.
I think
It's like he can't.
Yeah.
He's pretty rough. But
Yeah.
that bass where he's going to go, and I'm totally going to cry. That's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
But I've seen
nice.
Sabbath maybe 15 years ago. I'd seen like the original Sabbath. So that was
nice.
really cool. I'm really that. And I saw Guns N' Roses not this past summer, but the summer before that. And that was my first time seeing them. I never thought I'd see them. So I was like, that was a great show. Number
Was
3.
was that in America? Was
It was
US?
it was in Giant Stadium in New Jersey.
Wow. I think I was on the same tour because I was in the US as well when I saw them play in Wrigley Field in Chicago.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw some Cubs play there. Yeah, that's cool. Number 3, I have to think. I'm saying Metallica off the top of my head, but I mean other like non rock and roll stuff or non metal. When I was in college, I got into They Might Be Giants. That's some really quirky stuff.
Oh, nice.
On the lighter side, I like Elton John actually. I like old Elton John stuff.
Oh.
Like his self-titled album is like one of my favorite albums. I really love that. Back to rock, I guess old Jimi Hendrix. I like the Cranberries. I was really sad when Dolores died. That was a real shame.
Terrible. Awful. And I'm just looking around here. I can see Metallica, Guns N' Roses. All the bands that you just mentioned, they're just all surrounding me at the moment. So we have a good music taste. Your top 2 or 3 favorite food cuisines?
I grew up liking Italian stuff. I loved spaghetti. I could eat a good spaghetti every night. Yeah, a good steak. Korean food. I like the Korean barbecue, the samgyeopsal. I like that a lot.
Who is your Mount Rushmore of WWE or any just pro wrestling?
Okay, like people that are still alive or no?
Up to you.
Okay, I'm gonna go off the wall and unconventional and say like older people for way the hell back. I'm gonna say first Gorgeous George. Gorgeous George was an unrecognized father of popular culture. He was one of the first guys, if not the first, to really put stuff into his presentation. And like his wife was the character. He would like spray the ring down and like he would like fold up his robe and do his hair and shit like that. And like the audience would get so mad. They would like get so angry. Like he got heat. Yeah. And that's, he kind of inspired my wrestling novel that I'm working on. He inspired Muhammad Ali, which obviously that's such a huge, Muhammad Ali inspired me so much. He inspired Rocky and whatnot. And he also inspired, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan said that he had met Gorgeous George, he like whispered something to him or like he just really touched, like affected him somehow. And Bob Dylan started developing his own mythos that, I remember right, I think he was like a Minnesota kid and he had like, his parents were lawyers or whatever, but he's telling people these stories that he's like this hobo in the back streets of New York or whatever. Like he invented this character. I'd say Bruno Sammartino, he made, he was like the guy that, kind of built, like the Madison Square Garden house that Bruno built. And I love his life story and I really respected him and his, how he presented himself and everything. So I think, So the other two, okay, I'd have to say, I'm an 80s child, so I have to say Hogan. And then there's some, you could say, Rock, Undertaker, Flair, like, you pick any of those guys, like, oh, why not the other one?
Andre the Giant, Ricky.
I'd say Rock just because I don't know if there's anyone that got more famous outside of wrestling than Rock. Like he was the first, he's not the first wrestler to be in movies, but he was the first guy that legitimately became a movie star, had successful movies. Like, sorry, everybody else, but he legitimately became a movie star.
Like Roddy
So-
Piper tried, Hogan tried, there's all of them that
Right.
tried. Stone Cold was in a
Right.
few that I've seen. But yeah.
He's really, from what I hear, because
Yeah.
I could see him being an action star. I thought he was going to be like, I could see him being a big action star, but I think he didn't really like doing movies from what I understand.
Mm.
And the other thing too is I think with Austin, like dudes like Austin, you know, like, hey, he's this kick-ass character, but like you don't hear women talking about Austin, like women like The Rock, you know, for obviously.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
Mom hated wrestling. She liked The Rock. But I think The Rock has that going for him.
Yes.
He has the
Yes,
sex
that-
appeal for the league.
I actually
So
watched
Austin-
SmackDown yesterday, and he's still on there, so he's a part of the board, and he's got this character again, so yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
His daughter's the on-camera general manager of NXT, and yeah, so
know
it's
that.
all, yeah. I don't watch, actually, to be honest, I don't watch a lot of NXT, but from what Jim Cornette's podcast has told me, it's not very good. He definitely calls us spade.
I remember the old WWE network. Like I watched NXT a lot, and when that first year they had the network,
Right.
I missed the network. I really liked WWE.
Yeah, me too.
But I still like Kevin Owens in the network and Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville. I think he was the champion when I first started watching it.
Right.
Bailey, and, you know, and the four horsewomen was Sasha Banks, Bailey, Charlotte, Lynch. How could I forget Becky Lynch? But I remember those four being like new people in NXT. Like I remember I watched Charlotte's match where she was champion. So that was cool stuff. I like that. I have to say, if you're going to ask about, I have to say for movies, like I joke with people, I have my PhD in Rocky. I'm a big Rocky fan.
All right, that was my next one. You give me your three.
Yeah.
Okay, Rocky's number one.
Rocky's definitely number one. Yeah, right. I have to say, agree with Sam with American History X. That's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yes.
That's a great.
Good, yes.
I used to be big into Fight Club. I was a big Fight Club fan back in the day. A couple others. The guy that directed Rocky directed a movie called The Power of One, which is based on a South African novel. It's a historical drama, and there's a little bit of boxing in it. And it's a young Daniel Craig shows up at the end of the movie. He plays like the villain. That's a really cool movie. I'm a horror guy. I like the first Halloween, the first like 70s movies in general. Like I'm a big Chainsaw fan, and first Halloween, first Omen, stuff like that.
And then comic books for you, top three.
Oh boy. I mean, like I think everyone says Watchmen's number one.
Yes.
I like League of Gentlemen a lot. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think there's like the last fight I haven't read yet, but that inspired some of my work. I wrote this Frankenstein novella years ago. It's Frankenstein and Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Frankenstein.
Right.
It's just those two characters, but I was kind of inspired by the League. In the early 2000s, there was the Ultimates, Mark Millar on the Ultimates line, but it was like the Avengers, but it was in the Ultimate line of comics. The same time period, the Max Punisher was like an R-rated Punisher, basically. It was like the definitive series, I think. It was just, as good as the Punisher can be because all the violence and language and whatnot, it's all, not censored or anything. So that was really good stuff. Really, really good stories. Not just like violence for violence sake, but it was like really good, interesting dark stories in that. So those would be.
All right, last question, James. Who's your greatest influence / hero and why?
Influence my mother. I don't want to get too heavy, but I lost my mom a couple years ago. I was saying my mom was a wrestling fan and whatnot, but yeah, my mom kind of raised me by herself, and she really loved children, and she had some tough circumstances, and she put everything she had into raising me. So I'm really, I'm really grateful that my mom got to see me like turn out well. I think she had some anxiety that, what if things didn't go well for me and stuff. And I had a bad time in my late 20s and stuff. And then, so she got to see me like, yeah, but like, she got to see me be a good teacher. Like in America, she visited my school and my students and stuff. And, she got to see that I became a good teacher and was respected. And then she had anxiety about me coming to Korea, but like once I got settled in, she thought it was so neat that I traveled and stuff. And, Like there's a picture of me on an elephant in Thailand, and she thought that was so neat. She bragged everybody about it. She bragged everybody where I was going and stuff, all these places I was going. So yeah, so I'm really grateful for that. So as far as people that like in my life directly, I have to say my mom.
But thank you very much for your time. All the best with the comics, and I hope it all works out. And if you don't hang around, all the best for going back to the US.
Thank you.
大家好 I'm Bella from Bella Simple Chinese School. If you are a beginner, intermediate, advanced, looking for HSK study, business Chinese, or simply want to improve your everyday communication, I'm the teacher for you. Come and join me for a free travel class at Bella Simple Chinese School.